Hello there. It is 7:32 p.m. on Thursday, the 12th of March, 2026. I'm at a pretty cool campsite. Emphasis on cool. It's very cold up here. That's the new order of the day, it seems. I carried a beer up, a nice little pale ale. Yeah, that's good. And yeah, man, quite a day. I actually just finished adding some polyurethane to my tent on the seams of the outside rain fly. Last night it was really rainy for quite a while, and I got pretty wet. Not like, drastically. But it was like a couple of tablespoons worth of ingress for sure. The foot box of my sleeping bag was pretty wet, and there was just like, it was not surprising, but I've had this tent for about 4 years, and it's been through a lot. It already went through an entire thru-hike. Honestly, it could be at a point where it needs to just be retired. We'll see how things go as we continue down the trail, but I was able to pick up some polyurethane for the seams today, and yeah, man, we'll go through all that nonsense here in just a moment. I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping. When I got to this cool spot, I kind of spent 45 minutes or so. Hold on, I gotta make sure of this. Probably spent about 45 minutes letting my gear kind of dry out a little bit, and then also my tent, everything, while I kind of organized my life, So I'm feeling pretty good at this point. Everything is much drier than it was, and yeah, I was able to do something actually proactive to prevent what happened from hopefully happening again. So we shall see, my dude. There will be plenty of time for testing. But I gotta say, I'm a little nervous about going into the Smokies now with this little cold snap coming through. Might need to look into some options for, I'm gonna need to just do logistics to figure out what the best way to traverse the Smokies is gonna be. Because I really don't want to be stuck up there when it's really miserably cold, unless I have enough wine to completely negate my general water carrying strategy, but also you have to stay at shelters. I don't know, it's a whole thing. The Smokies is kind of annoying, but in a cool way, There's just a lot of rules. But yeah, I guess chronologically, so the things that kind of pop into mind about this morning and just today in general, first and foremost, I suppose, well, not foremost, but I've been going to bed really early, like asleep usually before 9 p.m. And a couple of times now I've woken up at about 3 a.m. or so and just kind of felt like completely awake. And so I've done like digital needfuls and kind of looked at the route ahead and done some general forecasting of what I want to do in the day and stuff like that, which has just been kind of interesting. I was doing the math this morning when I woke up really, really early, and I was like, well, I have had 7 hours of sleep. So it's kind of interesting because that's like not so far away from what I might have on a typical day in real life. So there is this thing called polyphasic sleep or biphasic sleep that apparently preceded the industrial age, where people would wake up kind of around the time I have been and, do chores, do stuff around their dwellings, and then go back to sleep for a couple more hours, which is what I've been doing. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens again tonight. I don't think I'll be asleep. Well, I probably will be asleep by 9. But yeah, just kind of an interesting way to start the day. And I gotta say, it rained overnight, and then it also got really cold overnight. And so the rain transitioned into frozen rain, and then ultimately it became like this kind of, it was just like frozen rain. Sounded like little pellets of salt hitting my tent, for a long time. And in all of my research, it seemed that basically the bulk of this rain and all was supposed to be done around 9:30 or 10. And so I was in absolutely no hurry whatsoever to get on the trail. Like, I was camped at 5,000 feet, which is not advisable for sure. But that's just kind of where the day took me. And to be fair, it wasn't that cold when I went up there. Not that that really matters. I had seen in the forecast that we were supposed to get a little bit of a snap. So the snap did indeed come. And I just kind of, did my morning needfuls and kind of tried to move around my tent, getting things kind of staged for the day as well as I possibly could, while also trying to note within the tent where water seemed like it was coming in. So, and definitely made a literal note in my notes that I needed to, reseal the seams. Again, 4-year-old tent has been through at least one thru-hike, and then I've also used it for the bike riding stuff. It's had a lot of use and abuse, So we'll see how much this ends up helping things. But yeah, so I got out at about, 9:30, hit the trail, and honestly, it was like perfect timing because I really did not encounter any of the actual rain that had been falling for hours and hours prior to getting on trail. So I felt pretty good about that. I felt like I made a good decision because, they say fools rush in. And for sure, I don't think that it would have been any kind of danger of, hypothermia because, as long as you're moving, as I was, and, when you're moving, your core is warm, especially with the hills out here. They're absolutely insane. You'd have to stop in order to actually become hypothermic, I think. And so as long as you're moving, you're fine. But the conditions were certainly the kind that lend themselves to hypothermic concerns, because if you do stop, then it could be a problem, And so it was pretty much a heads down affair for the bulk of the day, just because there was no point to stop, because if I stopped, I got too cold. But it was a pretty crazy day because it was also I think it was about 1,800 feet of climbing and then about almost 5,000 feet of descent, because it wasn't straight down the mountain, but by and large, all things considered, go a little bit up, then go really far down, then a little bit up, then really far down. And I was ultimately headed towards the Nantahala Outdoor Center. And so, I left at 9:30. I had planned to possibly take a break at one of the shelters that was on trail, which would have been the first time that I had kind of given in to resorting to spending time at a shelter. Because at this point, I still feel a little bit wary of the sanitation levels of the shelters. I just don't want to be inside of them or touch anything in them. I'm pretty far ahead of the bubble of thru-hikers. Again, I'm number 638, and I met people today at NOC who were in the 200s. So I've jumped ahead. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but just by and large, you can roughly estimate that I'm ahead of hundreds of people who have already started, or at least I have been tricked into thinking so after meeting a couple of people. So let's have another celebratory sip. I also kind of think I need to go ahead and get inside my sleeping bag so I can start cultivating some warmth inside, Might take a minute for it to warm up this evening. And I've got some extra pants in case I need them. But I don't know if I do, and I'm not sure I want to commit to it just yet. Although, should I? Probably should. But yeah, I went to that shelter, and by the time I got there, the wind was actually blowing directly into the shelter, which was very, very uncomfortable. It was blowing some pretty considerable snow into, frozen rain, really. Again, blowing that into the shelter, and it was just actually wasn't a shelter from the conditions. It was just in the middle of them, Ow. Oh, I just pulled a muscle. Ouch. That sucks. Ugh. It's so awkward to do stuff in a tent. I'm just trying to get my sleeping stuff wrapped around me. Let me put you up here so I can talk upwards. Yeah, you know, with the down sleeping bag, the way that they work is through trapping body heat in the feathers and stuff for warmth, and so it can take a while for that to happen. That wasn't something that I realized when I got my first down sleeping bag. I was kind of concerned that it like wasn't working or something, because they're not particularly warm when you first get in them. They really do take quite a while to capture and retain all that warmth. So if I'm just sitting here talking to y'all, shout out to my parents, I should go ahead and get in my sleeping bag so we can start that warm-up process. And if I can do it without pulling any more muscles, that'd be great. Okay, I don't need my fanny pack on anymore. Let's go ahead and take that off. I don't need my headphones wrapped around my freaking ears anymore. Let's take those out. Okay. So, yes, go ahead and get these needfuls tended to. Tonight is definitely like a sleep with your Sawyer kind of night as well. So, you know, you don't want your water filter to freeze, because if it freezes, it's not good anymore. It'll break all of the little tubules that help to keep all the bad bugs out of your water, your drinking water. So now I'm in my sleeping bag, and it's a pretty nice sunset. You know, pretty obscured, and honestly it's not that windy, which is nice. It was also very, very gusty last night, as it was predicted to be, but thankfully it seemed like for the most part I was protected from the bulk of the bad gusts. It didn't really bother me, and I don't think that this area is necessarily going to bother me either. It is definitely on a ridge, so it's a little breezy, but not like yesterday. It's nice when you have a comparison of something that was worse, because then when you're at something that's better, it's like, well, now if I say if I say it could be worse, like I can think of a very specific example of what could be worse, you know. So, yes, I did not take a break at that shelter. I just ate a bunch of honey, and then pressed on. And it was pretty awesome because, you know, the whole day was pretty much downhill, and I was going from 5,000 feet all the way down to like 1,800 feet. And so it got really warm by the time I actually got down to the NOC. And by really warm, I just mean, you know, mid-50s. Like, I could be outside in my hiking shorts and hiking shirt, and I felt pretty good. Didn't need like extra clothes on or anything. And yeah, man, it was just frantic needfuls, I would say. Like, not in a sense that like I was panicked or anything like that, but just like everything was very, very practical. I did not waste a single moment while I was at the NOC. I think I got there sometime around 2. It was about 12 and a half miles to get there from where I had camped. So a pretty good push, you know, a big push. And those big pushes like that are a lot easier when, you know, you can't stop because of the weather. It kind of naturally ferries you to your destination with a speed and level of focus that's kind of hard to match when the stakes aren't quite as high. Because, you know, going into the NOC, I knew that there was going to be a general store. I knew that they had the outfitter there. I knew that I'd be able to charge my phone. I knew that I would be able to apply for my Smokies permit. And I knew that I'd be able to eat some hot food. And so all of that was accomplished. The first thing I did when I went in was to ask if, you know, I could help, if they minded where I put my backpack, and like if they had a place where I could charge. And so they kind of directed me to all of the necessary areas for those things. And so, yeah, just got my phone going, and then walked across to the general store. And I was really, really hoping that they would have eggs or some sort of meat, chicken or beef or something like that. And it just so happened the only fresh food that they really had were a dozen eggs from a local farmer. And so I was able to buy those and a muscle milk. I ate a lot of protein today, so I tried to balance that as much as I could with drinking water, because I know that can be a little hard on your kidneys. But I've never noticed any ill effect, and I've eaten my fair share of eggs before. But yeah, I bought a dozen eggs in that muscle milk, and that was $20. The eggs were $8.99 for a dozen, and I was like, whoa. I ended up spending $60 today, and I didn't even stay inside the NOC. Like, I was considering possibly staying at one of the bunkhouses, but even for thru-hikers, to stay at the bunkhouse was $50, and I was just like, man, that's steep for, like usually, I don't know, a bunk, I think a reasonable price is like $20, maybe $35, depending on like, where you're staying and like what the general expectation is. But yeah, I thought that was a little steep of like, it doesn't really matter. Like my budget isn't like something that's like really constraining my decisions, but I am still trying to be as frugal as possible because I want the money to last as long as possible, And so, $60 and still camping in the woods. This is kind of funny. Actually, as I think about it, I think I spent $80 because the permit for the Smokies was $40. The food that I bought initially was $20, and then I went back again for a quick resupply, and that was like another $15 or $20. So, yeah, man, definitely expensive. It's a cool spot, and I'm happy to support them, but I also can't help but look through my frugal lens and just be like, dang, that's like a lot of money, y'all. But it's all good. Happy to have been there. It was really cool. I was able to use my pan, and I made all 12 eggs and ate them in 2 separate chunks. So my health bar went all the way back to 100%. And hung out with some nice, cool people who were also hiking. One guy, man, I don't remember a lot of their names, but shout out to Tootie. And when I asked him how he got his trail name, he said he farts a lot. So I was like, okay, Tootie. And there was, what was it? Hiking on a Prayer. Shout out to Hiking on a Prayer if you're listening. And a couple other people, didn't get all of their names, or at least didn't remember them. But there was one guy who had definitely taken a pretty bad spill and like hit his face, and he had 2 black eyes, and his nose was all bruised up and had a pretty good gash on it. And, when I see people like that, especially in situations like, the Appalachian Trail, like, I'm not going to be the person to ask, like, oh, what happened? Because, like, looking at him, it's like, I know exactly what happened. Like, there was a million opportunities where you could have fallen and hit your face. Like, it's not surprising that happened. It's just really unfortunate. So I talked to him for a bit, and, it just didn't it didn't faze me that he was, like, pretty horrendously disfigured. If it makes anyone feel any better, he was 60 in his 60s, so it wasn't like, well, I don't even know. It's not appropriate to say that if you're older that's more likely, but that is my feeling. Unfortunately, especially if you at this point I think I'm at like mile, well, I guess I could check, but like, we're all pretty early on in this experience, and so you really don't have like a lot of your hiking legs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, mile 142.1 is where I'm at, which is at, oh man, 4,045 feet. No wonder it's so freaking cold. I definitely remember in 2022, this time of year, that I was trying more oftentimes than not, especially in this general area, to sleep at the lowest elevation I could possibly find, which is difficult on the Appalachian Trail, especially right outside of the Smokies. But for tonight, like, as soon as you leave the Nantahala Outdoor Center, you basically go right back up. Like, you have to climb, obviously back up to 4,000 feet. I'm about 1,000 feet lower than I was last night, so that's good. And there's no rain in the forecast, which is even better. And I hope that the polyurethane will cure pretty well overnight. I'm not really sure how it does when it's in a cold environment, but I didn't want to keep carrying it and then trying to find a time to like set my tent up and do what I did right before starting this clip. So I feel good about that. But yeah, was running around doing little things. Shout out to the people at the Nantahala Outdoor Center. They were very helpful and very kind, doing research to make sure that I was getting the right thing for the seams on my tent. Initially, I was being directed to get some silicone to put on the seams, but then it turned out that this tent is most likely a polyurethane tent, and so it requires polyurethane for the seams. But yeah, I was there for probably a little over 2 hours, and then I felt full and ready, and I got a free cup of coffee from the country store, which was really nice. Thank you, lady who was the cashier there. I really appreciated that. It's always nice to get something for free. It was like the last bit of the coffee pot, so she didn't have the heart to charge me. But yeah, after getting all my needfuls taken care of, I was like, well, I guess it's time to go. And that kind of brings up seamlessly one of my notes for today, which is that I don't know. I think in terms, this will definitely change as the time continues to change, but I think what I like to do at this point, rather than necessarily going for 20 miles per se, which I think I'll probably still generally be hitting most of the time, just because of the way the math and the pace kind of works out. But I think what I want to do is basically set my whole day up so that that I'm basically stopping hiking at 6, and so I have almost around 2 hours of time to relax and camp before it gets dark. And so that was my metric for today. I had about an hour and 50 minutes, and I found this little campsite on the map, and I was like, well, that seems good enough. I can go up there and I can find something, and that's just what I did. It was nice. It was a lot of uphill, which made everything much warmer, so I wasn't too concerned about being too cold. And the last, half mile or whatever, I was also carrying all my water for the evening, because this is a dry campsite, and so I had 11 extra pounds or whatever, and so I felt extra warm. And then I got here, set everything up, and like I said, I'd kind of dried out all my gear while I was going through other things, so the tent's actually in pretty good shape at this point. I feel pretty good about it, and I'll be curious to see what kind of possible intrusion we have for the next time it rains. But yeah, I didn't really make any list notes today. It was a very mission-oriented and focused day, and so I was really just thinking about the things I needed to do in the order that I wanted to do them, so that as soon as I got to the NOC, I could very quickly just execute all of those things in the order that I just had rehearsed so many times in my head. So, yeah, my dude, I don't know if I have much more to say, I think it's going to be a chilly evening, but, I've got everything that I can, and tomorrow I'll be headed for Fontana Dam. I don't really know. I can check, so I guess I should. I'm probably, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. How far am I from Fontana? Oh, come on. 22 and a half miles. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about what's going to be for tomorrow. I'm kind of having a feeling where it's it'd be nice to stay at a hostel, But if I do that anytime soon, I would really like to stay at one that helps with me being able to get out of some of the weather that's supposed to be extremely cold, because I don't really want to be in the Smokies when that's going on. But we shall see, I suppose. If I wake up early in the morning, I certainly will be looking into all of this to figure out what the best course of action will be. 22 and a half miles, 5,000 feet of elevation, and 6,700 feet of descent. Wow. So that's just a roller coaster right there, my dude. And then once you're in the Smokies, you're stuck there, my dude. You don't have a bailout point until 441, funny enough. I love 441. So that's 65 miles ahead. Newfound Gap. That takes you into Gatlinburg, period. It looks like people don't usually go to Cherokee for whatever reason. But yeah, man, I enjoy doing these logistics, and I enjoy doing these kinds of experiences, and, it will be a cold night, but it won't be so cold that, I'm sure I'll be able to sleep. I don't want to scare people. But, this is this is the other half of the coin. I'm really glad that, the cold and the rain didn't come sooner, because it would have been a lot harder to do the road walk and stuff like that to Amicalola, or even the first couple of days of the Appalachian Trail itself. It would have been a lot more demoralizing for it to happen early in the trip, just because it's, you're still getting your rhythm together, and when the weather is bad, it just makes everything so much harder, because it's just this unyielding factor to the whole experience, and it just makes it so much more it just makes it more, the stakes are higher. You need to do things properly just to make sure that you can continue to go without necessarily making a mistake, So, yes, indeed. Living the dream, my dude. Living the dream. And I'm glad that I've got my sleeping bag warming up, and, I'll close my tent fly here soon enough, and that'll help to envelop a little bit more of this body heat. And yeah, I've got some mayonnaise packets, I've got some tuna, I've got some almonds. Oof, living the dream indeed. Oh yeah. So, for now, well, I guess I can mention a little something more. I have started to use AI to create episode descriptions. That was one of the things I did when I woke up, because I had made a note. I wanted to look into search engine optimization, or at least something like that for podcasts, because I don't know, I feel like I could make my podcast a little bit more searchable and discoverable on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if I put more effort into the actual metadata that goes along with each episode. This doesn't really matter, but it was something interesting that I looked into, and then pretty much immediately set up I pretty much set up an agent through Gemini, to where now every time I have a transcript, I just put it into this continuous project. I'll ask it to give me the elements that I've requested, and then it'll be able to basically, give me the episode description, a snappy title, and I'm still looking into some other things as well. But that was a digital victory last night at 3 a.m. So, yeah, my dude, living the dream. And 30 minutes, I suppose that's good enough. So, yes, for now, I will leave it there. And, yeah, love you, bye.